Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Strange Horizon. This is only our second episode, but a very first episode on this particular channel. Now, truth be told, I had actually already recorded this episode. I had it all scripted out. I had a little teleprompter, and I was all standing there, and I looked at the tape and I was like, man, that looks so boring. Like when you're just reading off a script, I felt like Brian Stelter from CNN. UFO. It wasn't working. But aside from that, after I ended up actually taping the episode, I found this incredible new piece of evidence, this unbelievable confirmation, a coincidence that is just jaw-dropping. Like, I just could not believe it. Something that I have to share regarding the footage that I'm about to show. So please stay tuned to the very end. You're not going to regret it. At first, just looked like a little speck. Like, honestly, I really didn't think much of it at first. And then I realized that this footage was actually captured in 4K. And so when I cropped into it in a 1080 version and I took a closer look, I actually started noticing something rather peculiar. And so I decided, okay, well, is there any further enhancement analysis that we can do? And wow, the results are pretty amazing. So outside this amazing footage from the viewer, something else that we're going to be going over that has been essentially circulating around the internet lately, kind of picking up steam, is this particular footage. Is it a bird? Is it a plane? No, I think it's just death. The Grand Reaper himself taking a sunset stroll.
It's the Grim Reaper, dude! Oh, how's it hanging, Death?
Well, whatever this is, we're going to be going over our analysis, and I do think that we actually found something interesting. It was not easy to analyze this footage. It was super shaky, but there is something to take note of. And since this is only our second episode, if you do end up enjoying this episode, please subscribe in this link below. We ended up actually getting our very own custom URL thanks to the wave of new subscribers from our first episode. So I just want to thank ahead of time all the viewers who are presently watching this episode. Okay, so without further ado, let's go ahead and take a look at this first footage that we ended up getting from a viewer. And so just to kind of start off, I'm going to go ahead and go over the email, which will kind of give you a sense of what the viewer was thinking before he ended up submitting this footage to our channel. Take a look. I was standing outside my flat on the first floor, looking at approximately easterly direction, staring into the distance, contemplating some problems, when I noticed in the corner of my eyes something eye-catching coming from the north, or left side of the panoramic image. It seemed to be a group of metallic objects traveling at a constant speed and height, moving approximately north to south, left to right on the panoramic image. The objects appeared to be flying in a tight group, but changing positions and moving around each other. By this point, I had watched the objects for around 1 minute without recording any footage. I suddenly said to myself, "You idiot, get your phone out." So I took out my phone and held it up, waiting for the objects to emerge from behind the trees in the middle of the panoramic image. I spotted the object again and started recording and zoomed in by pinching on the screen. I flicked my eyes between the object and the phone screen, trying to keep the camera on target, which was difficult. Then, something really strange happens. A few seconds after losing sight of the first group of objects, I noticed another large spherical dark object in the area that the first metallic group of objects had passed through a few seconds ago. The spherical object seemed to appear from nowhere. It also appeared to be at the same height and distance and moving at the same speed and direction as the first group of objects I had just witnessed. To the naked eye, the second spherical object seemed larger and darker than the first object or objects. I record the spherical object for a few seconds until I think I can no longer see it. I do not have a clue what they are. However, I'm confident that the first group of metallic objects or object is related to the second spherical object in some way. The videos are shaky and could do some stabilization with editing. I was not able to do this, sorry. So I'll be honest, it's pretty rare that we get an image of a compass actually denoting the exact direction of where this viewer ended up capturing this footage, as well as a panoramic. It helps, let's put it that way. It gives us a further points of references. And so when we did ended up analyzing, the one thing that we found most striking is that this isn't a group of objects as the viewer thought it might be initially. It's actually one particular object. Take a look. Here is the video of the second object that he said was a larger spherical object. Technically, because the first one is actually not three objects, but one object, this one is actually smaller. But take a look, it's pretty interesting nonetheless. So yeah, wow, that was something, right? But there is one particular aspect of this footage that makes it actually particularly interesting. See, around the exact same time, I had one particular abductee, or I guess the political correct way of saying it is experiencer, but this particular viewer who has been submitting incredible footage to this channel, well, he submitted this particular picture that he took, which included a spherical object and, as he put it, a translucent triangular object. Now, if this sounds familiar, well, it should, because there was a wave of UFOs that happened between 1989 and 1992 called the TR-3B, which was basically a triangular UFO that the Belgium Air Force was capturing. And to add to this, it wasn't just the Belgium Air Force that had been reporting, and let me just add that they were the first government military to actually say that UFOs are real. So not only was the Belgium Air Force reporting this incredible black triangular object, but there were also patents that were created by the Navy, as well as somebody by the name of Quincy St. Clair, who claims to be a hyperspace inventor, who came out with a particular image that had this uncanny appearance to the TR-3B. So aside from the triangular similarity between the Navy's patent and St. Clair's patent, I should add that they do claim to use different physical properties, though what is kind of interesting is that they claim that it's the same physical process that created this, which is counter-rotating electromagnetic field. So the biggest difference is that the Navy is claiming that they're utilizing something called the Bayes effect, which is essentially, I mean, I'm not going to pretend like I know all the intricacies of the physics, but it's using a vacuum state quantum fluctuation. So I guess in the vacuum state, there is some kind of vibrational energy that they're able to harness. And so apparently they used electromagnetic fields as a way to insulate what they claim is a fusion reaction that is this accelerating modes of energy that are coming from these vacuum state quantum fluctuations. Now, the Bayes effect, which the Navy funded, this was a term that was coined from an individual named Salvatore Cesar Pais, who works for the Air Force. And you know, there are some doubts whether this effect is actually a real effect. So the Drive.com, this very interesting article regarding whether these UFO patents by the Navy are actually real, well, they quote, "Despite every physicist we have spoken to over the better part of the 2 years asserting that the Bayes effect has no scientific basis in reality and that patents related to it were filled with pseudo-scientific jargon." So I guess not everybody believes that this effect is real. And I can't even vouch for this St. Clair individual either. I just thought it was kind of interesting that he's also talking about counter-rotating electromagnetic fields. But in his particular effect, he talks about how these fields are essentially the driving force. So the Pace effect was essentially insulating this fusion reaction, which was creating this enormous yield or source of energy. And this particular individual is talking about electromagnetic fields as a means to bend the curvature of space itself. So in a way, using Einstein's theory of relativity and affecting the space-time continuum, affecting the bendage of space, and thus creating a form of lift and thrust. And I should also add that there is a physicist, Michio Kaku, a very famous physicist, who came out with a book called The Physics of the Impossible. And in his book, he proposes that any civilization that would eventually figure out some kind of anti-gravitational craft, that the first property that they would probably be utilizing would be, get this, counter-rotating electromagnetic fields. The one difference, though, is that Michio Kaku believes that this would be utilized in a sense of repelling a field against Earth's own electromagnetic field. So that's pretty interesting. We got the Navy, we got this particular patent by St. Clair, and we got a physicist all claiming that anti-gravity can be achieved through counter-rotating electromagnetic field. I guess the biggest difference is just that they all cite different effects, different properties from the same process, I suppose. So I guess I should talk about that big disclosure. Like, why did I have to reshoot this episode? Like, what was I talking about in the beginning that is so jaw-dropping? Well, okay, let's put it this way. So that particular individual who submitted that footage, I actually did some further analysis on the footage. So before I can reveal the big surprise, I want to actually first do a little bit of analysis to see if this particular footage is actually real footage. So let's go ahead and transport ourselves to the analysis pod to take a closer look at this footage. All right, so for this analysis, it's basically all we need is a couple images, the video files that this particular viewer has provided, as well as Google Earth. So I want to start out with these images and just show you what we have here. This is really unusual. I don't usually get this from people who are providing evidence, but he actually took a picture of a compass, basically indicating the direction where the object was coming from. And it looks like it was coming from eastern direction. And then he also provided this panorama, which basically showcases where he saw it from, which is some kind of balcony. And then of course there are the video files that he provided. So what I really wanted to do here is I wanted to open up Terminal, and I downloaded software that basically allows me to analyze the metadata of this footage. So if I go here and I type ExIF tool and I put this video here, let's check out the metadata. So according to this ExIF data, the video was shot on 2020 September 26. And he did write in his email, right over here, he said that he captured the object on his iPhone on September 26, 2020. So far what he told us in the email seems to be matching the ExIF data, but let's keep looking here. That he actually captured this on an iPhone. Yeah, it says here, make, Apple, model, iPhone SE. Now here's the most important part. The software, 14.0. So what does that mean? Well, it means that the footage, if we can trust the ExIF data, was coming directly from his phone. There was no outside software, no outside alteration. Otherwise it would say like Photoshop, or it would say some other software. But when it just denotes the number, meaning the version of the OS system, it's just straight coming out of his phone, his iPhone, just as he says here. I captured in my iPhone, we got the date correct. We know that he didn't use any other software. And just to take this a step further, what I went ahead and did is I took his GPS position. Now, obviously, I'm going to not show you guys that for obvious reasons, but I went in Google Earth and I plugged in the GPS location, and sure enough,
I got this particular area that seems to actually match where he captured the UFO. So it appears that he captured it from this particular balcony. This is in Britain, by the way, just as he said. And if you look over here, look at these houses, right? We have this house with two little chimneys. We have one chimney over here. And then we have this one that has kind of solar panels and then solar panels on the right side. If we go back to this panorama, well, here is a house with two chimneys, one over here, one over here. There appears to be another chimney here. And take a look at this. Here is a house with the solar panels on this side. And this is actually, if you're to be in this balcony and be facing this house with a solar panel over here, it's actually exactly at an eastern direction, as you can see over here. So basically everything that he's saying is matching. And if you're to triangulate the exact area that he saw the UFO, it seems to have come from mostly eastern direction, but just a tiny bit deviating from the south end. So it'd be around these trees, possibly these trees over here. It's hard to tell. You know, what I see is there are one line of houses here, another line of houses here, and there's a third line with the trees. So that would be these houses, the houses right behind the streets, and then a third house. So I'm guessing somewhere around here with these particular trees is where he saw the UFO. So very cool. Everything seems to be matching. The exact location seems to be matching. The date seems to be matching. We can tell that he captured this with his iPhone. So all I can say is that it looks like whatever it is that he captured on his phone, it seems to be legitimate.
Okay, so it does appear that this footage is real, which is pretty awesome. It's like, wow, this guy actually took this straight off his phone with no third-party software. So you can imagine my surprise when, while I was editing this footage, I tuned in to Coast to Coast AM and I saw their news segments where they revealed the story of a large triangular UFO that was apparently captured by a doorbell footage. Now, I would love to show you the footage, but unfortunately, the individual who submitted this footage is actually asking for pre-approval to use his footage. And though I have emailed him and requested approval, he has not gotten back to me yet. So I'm not going to slow down the episode. I'm just going to go ahead and tell you that this footage exists. You can go to the link yourself and take a look at the footage. And here are the screen captures of what this individual apparently caught with a doorbell camera. So what really shocked me is that I initially went to this footage because of the similarity that this individual captured a huge triangular craft. Now, what if I were to tell you that the particular location of the footage of the video that I showed from the viewer who submitted, who thought it was three objects but ended up being a large triangular object, what if I were to say that that particular footage is exactly 10 kilometers away from this particular footage? What? Like, are you kidding me? Is that even possible? That in the world that spans 20,000 miles in diameter, or whatever the circumference of Earth is, it's pretty large, that this particular footage that I thought was similar only because of the appearance of the large triangular craft happens to be only 10 kilometers away? What? Ladies and gentlemen, this is like, whoa, that's like some crazy validation right there. Wow, yeah, I thought that was really cool that I noticed this only after I started editing the episode. But we're not done yet. Now we have this particular footage of what is being claimed as a flying humanoid. So the question is, what the hell is that? And is it possible to take a closer look or a closer analysis as to what is actually happening with this footage? When I first looked at this, I thought that the shape was pretty unusual for a UFO. But the shape was also unusual for what would be considered a humanoid creature, because what humanoid creature has a square body and tiny limbs?
I am not a flying monster. I am just one of you. Oh! Oh, that...
Okay, so outside of the Grand Reaper himself, or a flying SpongeBob, It does appear that there is something interesting about this footage. Obviously, I don't know what it is. I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. So that's why we decided to do a closer analysis. And let's just take a look at what we have. So yeah, I'm gonna be honest, that was not an easy analysis. Whatever this footage was, it seemed to have been captured in interlaced footage, which is kind of telling because a lot of cameras don't shoot in interlaced. They shoot just usually progressive whole frames, the modern cameras do. So it might have been captured with an older camera. It was like really difficult to stabilize. I mean, you had all kinds of shakiness as well as all the ghost framings from the interlaced. So I literally had to render this in individual frames after I had already stabilized it or attempted to stabilize it. And then I actually manually took out all these ghost frames to create the image that you just saw. And what I did not notice at first, but I did notice after this particular analysis, is that whatever this object is, it's not only very stable in its vertical position, it seems to be spinning on its vertical axis. Now, I can't be certain, but this is not a type of movement that I would have expected from a balloon that's just randomly being taken by the whims of the wind. It just seemed like a true regular and true stable of a motion. I could be wrong. I'm not 100% certain, but it's just something that I noticed that I thought was of note to mention to the audience, that this object, whatever it is, does seem to have a regular spinning motion. I would say actually not that dissimilar from the first object that we showed from the viewer who had that triangular shaped object. There's some similarity to these objects and how they move. All right, so yeah. I have no idea what that is. If you have any ideas, any concepts, thoughts, guesses of what this could be, please leave your thoughts and comments below in the comment section below. This is about the part in the episode where we would do the remote viewing section. I ended up hiding an image attached to a particular code in the previous episode. Unfortunately, in this particular episode, we only had one guess, which is just, I feel like I need wider participation, otherwise it's kind of futile to reveal the image. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna reintroduce the same code, the same image that is hidden, and if there is wider participation, I will go ahead and reveal the image. If not, maybe this segment is just not right for the particular show. But if you do want to participate, all you have to do is write RV column and your guess, or if it's not a guess, you know what I mean. Just whatever it is that you see, go ahead and write it RV column in that particular thing that you think it is. And you can write that in the comment section below, or you can email me at EaFiles.contact@gmail.com if you want to, let's say, have some confidentiality with your particular guess. So thank you so much for joining me in this particular journey, our second episode. If you do like the episode, I would greatly appreciate it if you would share, or if you haven't subscribed, definitely that would help this channel grow. And yeah, I guess I'll catch you next time. This is Felipe speaking, signing out.